Coming up on UGTV, Standing Committee Meetings of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. We begin with a meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee. This will be followed by the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee.
All right, good evening. I'm going to call the Public Works and Safety meeting to order, and we want to welcome everyone to our meeting. Public comment is welcome, and anyone wishing to speak on any item on the agenda may do so when that item's up for discussion. You would have up to 3 minutes, and we would ask that you come forward to the microphone, speak directly into the microphone for our recording purposes, and give us your name and city for the record. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Groneman. Here. Gilbrook.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Kane. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Bynum.
Here. First item is approval of minutes from June 18. Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. We have 9 items under our committee agenda tonight. Item 1 is an interlocal agreement with Fairfax Drainage District for joint use of sewer infrastructure, and we have Ms. Alig with council to present.
This agreement is an interlocal agreement between the Unified Government and the Fairfax Drainage District. Essentially, the Fairfax Drainage District operates a sewer system. Some of our water goes into their sewer system. This agreement has us paying for an allocated part of what we use. So it pays for the sewer cleaning and maintenance necessitated by our use. There is one change from past years. Previously, we've brought a resolution to you each year to authorize this. This agreement is a 10-year agreement, and it includes prices for the next 10 years.
Any questions from the member of the standing committee? Any other comments?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Could we have roll call?
Roll call. Groneman. Gilbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. That motion carries. The next item is a resolution authorizing a survey of land necessary for a new BPU substation at 4417 Speaker Road. And again, we have Ms. Alig here to present this.
This is a survey resolution that would start the land acquisition process for this project. We have Pat Morrill here from BPU who can give a little more information about what it will do and what it'll look like.
Sir, would you like to come up to the front? And then on the microphone, if you'll just push the button and turn it green so that we'll be able to hear you. Thank you and welcome. Push your microphone button. There you go. All right, thanks.
Okay. So BPU is in the process of acquiring property for 2 new substations. For the utility, both substations are replacing existing 69 kV substations that are 60 plus years old. So basically, we're here to acquire property for the Speaker Sub down on Speaker Road and Everett Substation, which is north of State Avenue. The Speaker Substation, the new substation will be similar design to the Piper Substation that is shown here. It's a 6-bay, 161 kV substation. It will have 3 161 kV transmission lines that interconnect to this substation for reliability purposes. There will be initially 2 transformers and set of switchgear that will basically replace the existing 69 kV substation. And there's room for a 3rd transformer if growth in the area requires it. Everett Substation will be a 4-bay, 161 kV substation, similar design to this substation. It will have room for 2 transmission lines, 161 kV. One of the lines will interconnect to Speaker Substation. The other line will go to Quindaro Substation. Again, it will have 2 transformers and 2 sets of switchgear that will serve the surrounding community. The transmission lines that will interconnect these substations will be similar to what's installed around the community now. Again, they're a tall 161 kV structure. We'll probably have underbuild 15 kV distribution circuits on them. And that's the end of that presentation.
So, yes, Angela, Commissioner Markley.
So you said these are replacing existing stations. Where are those existing stations, and are they going to?
The existing Speaker Substation is right across the street from the new proposed substation, and the existing Everett Substation is on the adjacent property. So,
Commissioner Kane.
The one you guys put in Walcott, is that in use yet?
yes, it is. It's fully in use. It connects to Westar Weatherby Substation to the north. It connects to the BPU Maywood Substation to the south and to Piper Substation to the west. And then there's room for additional transmission line to go to the Nerman Power Plant.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Philbrook.
So you said the last one's been in use for almost 60 years?
Yes.
What do you think the life of these 2 are going to be?
These will be extended out 50 to 60 years, if not more. If you maintain the equipment in good, reliable condition, it will last for a long time.
Oh, good. I won't have to vote on it again. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Groneman, as our BPU board representative, do you have anything to add on this?
I'd just like to make the motion that we approve the resolution.
Second.
Excellent. I have one quick question that applies to both of these, and then we'll vote. Just to be clear, it's the BPU's project, but it's the unified government's job to do this portion of the acquisition of the property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we have a motion and a second. Well, we're doing one at a time.
Okay, so I forgot to ask you. So what are we doing with the property that you're taking? You're getting rid of the other substation?
The Everett Substation property will be incorporated into the new substation.
Okay.
The Speaker Substation that's across the way will be basically decommissioned and put back into where it could be used by the public. Somebody could buy it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we have a motion and a second. Roll call on this item.
Roll call, Groneman.
Aye.
Gilbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. That motion carries, and the next item is pretty much the same. It's the BPU substation at 4401 Everett.
Yes.
Any other discussion or questions?
I'd like to make the motion that we approve the resolution.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Could we have roll call?
Roll call, Groneman.
Aye.
Gilbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Johnson.
Aye.
Gilbrook. Bynum.
Aye. And that motion carries. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next item is a resolution authorizing a survey necessary for Piper Creek Regional Improvements Phase 1. And again, we have Ms. Ailig, is that correct? Or we have, I'm sorry, Mr. Chris
Yes.
Finger, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Public Works, and we have a presentation.
Yeah, so I'm here to present on Piper Creek. Thank you for having me. So what we're looking at here is we have currently development starting at the top of the basin, developing down, and we're having to pump all those flows that gravity flow to the west over to the east into the Connor Creek Basin for treatment and conveyance. So instead of limping along with constantly adding pump stations, we're moving ahead with a project to install gravity sewer interceptor to a brand new regional pump station. They can then pump it all back, and it'll give us a 20-year time frame or better.
And so this is a resolution for
Survey.
clearing any land we might deem necessary for this project.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is sewers in Piper. Is this connected at all to the new school project being built in Piper?
That is one of the developments that we have taken into consideration with this project. That would be the green square there. The red ones would be proposed development of residential units in the next 5 years. That's our 5-year project, and we've actually projected out 20 years through work with the planning department.
So part of it is directly for the school.
They're one of the people driving this project at this point. Not the only one, but one of them.
Commissioner Kane?
Okay, so we don't run into the same condition that we're running into with the KCK School District. I would think you would get all the parties together now, prior to even thinking about doing any work, to say who's going to pay for this and who's going to pay for that, and let's have it up front.
Yes, sir. That's part of why I asked the question about this project is approved in our CMIP. Mr. Fisher.
Sorry, thank you. Staff has been working with the school district. We first met 2 or 3 years ago about this project and have been working together since. We're working on a development agreement for the sewer and road improvements.
I would like to know the dollar amount of this project.
The total dollar amount that we anticipate that for both design, construction, and easement acquisition is $7.5 million for phase 1, another $4 million for phase 2.
Commissioner Kane?
When we get further along this, I'd like them to come back and tell us how they're doing.
Absolutely. Commissioner Philbrook?
So how long is phase 1? What's the time frame on that?
Phase 1 will be developed and in the ground and operable by August of 2020 so that the school can open. That'll also tie into at least 2 of the 3 main developments that are interested in the area as well, they're ready to move forward with their own development plans.
Great. And then phase 2 looks like what?
We're anticipating about a 5 to 8 year gap between phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 will be developing further up the basins to allow more people to be served by gravity and open up the overall basin for further growth and development.
When you say a 5 to 8 year gap, do you mean from beginning it to ending it, or what do you, I'm not.
From the end of this construction to when we feel it might be prudent to start that one.
So when you finish this one in 2020, then you start on the next one. It might take 5 to 8 years, or you're going to wait 5 years.
We'll wait 5 or so years before, and see what the interest is. Right now, through our discussions with planning and the interest, we're expecting the development to trigger in the next 5 to 8.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? There, yes, sir.
Just to add a couple of things. The development agreement with the school district will include contributions from the school district to both projects. Also, all of the fees associated with the sewer recovered through fees, all the costs recovered through fees.
Good to know. Thank you very much. Any member of the public have any comment on this item? And just to recap quickly, this item is the authorization for any property that might be needed to be acquired for this project. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Could we have roll call, please?
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Gilbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. And that motion's approved. And thank you, gentlemen. Next, we're moving a lot quicker than I thought we were going to, by the way, which is super awesome. Why did I speak? I am so sorry.
Can't start the other
I apologize. What? Okay. And now we're gonna slow down because I've been told we can't start our next meeting until 6:30.
No pressure, Jack.
Good evening. This is a resolution authorizing loaning and donation of fire equipment to both KCKCC and Uruapan, Michoacan, Mexico. And we have Mr. Waters and also Chief Andrade from the fire department. Gentlemen.
Thank you. The fire department has certain equipment that has become obsolete for its purposes. However, certain other entities here, the community college and our sister city in Mexico, have indicated that they would have a need for this equipment and they would like to loan and donate this equipment.
And when we say loan, does that mean at some point they're going to try to give it back?
Well, no, that at some point if we need it, but however, we work closely with KCK Community College and we send our trainees and also our local recruit classes over there to utilize that equipment. And so that's why we say loan, is that they would loan it back to us if we need it in larger class sizes.
Any questions or comments?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Gilbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane.
Opinion on Mr. Commissioner Kane being able to vote?
What's the concern?
Wow, what a moment.
I don't think it has anything to do with the other issues that you had asked about previously, so I think this is probably okay.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Mike, that's one of the first times I've seen you speak.
Okay. Next item. We have members of our KCK Police Department, and it is a request to both apply for and accept an FY18 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $104,142. Who's going first?
I will.
Thank you. And please push the button. There you go.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Laura Cromwell. I'm the professional fiscal assistant for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. I'm here with Assistant Chief Waldeck, Major Hallmark, and Captain Heron. And the PD received notification of the federal fiscal year 18 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant a few weeks ago, and we are seeking approval to both apply for and accept this award. This particular grant is considered both an entitlement grant as well as a formula grant. We are entitled to this funding through this grant program because we're a law enforcement agency and have the requisite crime data. And the amount of funding we are entitled to is determined by a formula that incorporates both our population and our violent crime statistics. This year, allocated amount based on that formula is $104,142. And the PD would like to use that money to purchase the following items. The first project would be to fund gas mask irritant filters for all sworn personnel. This would provide a more reliable and economical solution for gas mask replacement or gas mask filter replacement. The current filters are expired and they can only be used one time, so they're looking to replace something with, replace these with multi-use filters that can be used also for training purposes. This particular project would be about $15,700. The second project they're looking to spend some money on would be to provide training materials for the crisis intervention team. These trainings are hosted by the police department in conjunction with health care professionals and addiction professionals to provide training on how best to interact with people with mental health issues. Currently, we provide these trainings with no operating budget, and they're looking to expand that training, train more. I know Major Quinn wants to train 100% of PD personnel, so we're looking to fund that project. And then lastly, the bulk of our funding would be used to provide updated equipment for our special operations unit. Specific items would be new sights for subguns, portable tactical surveillance equipment, gas masks, portable rifle-grade ballistic shields, and night vision for long guns. For these 3 projects, the total request would be $104,008, which would just be a smidge under what we're allocated. So that would allow for some wiggle room on pricing of any of these objects. And then the other thing to point out is these projects will be 100% federally funded with no match requirement from the UG.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. I do have a quick comment. Number one, I love the no match requirement part. I appreciate the inclusion of the CIT materials because I know that in the past we've not had any money for the materials and things that might be needed, and that class is so important. And I read in the agenda packet that it speaks to keeping our officers safe, which certainly is extremely important. But the other thing it does is it keeps the public safe. And it's just a really valuable training. So I just wanted to just stop and highlight how much I appreciate including those materials in this grant. Are there any other comments or questions on this item? Could we have roll call on this item?
Roll call, Groneman.
Aye.
Gilbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. And that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right, next up, we have a presentation on the removal or possible decommission of this 18th Street Bridge number 210. And we have Brent Thompson. No?
Brandon Grover.
Thank you.
We look similar, it's okay.
I just always flip-flop you two. I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna give him the compliment on that side by saying he looks like me.
So sorry. Okay, gentlemen, which of you wants to make the presentation?
I'll go ahead and start. Up here with me, I've got Troy Shar, County Engineer, and Jeremy Rogers, our Director of Parks and Rec, who will have a key piece in this in the future potential. So what we're here to do tonight is discuss Bridge 210. If anybody's driven down this bridge, you'll remember it. It's on 18th Street, south of Merriam Lane. It actually joins over Turkey Creek two pieces of House of Rocks property. Currently, this is a bridge that was built in 1940, so 78 years ago. It was originally constructed out of 2 box cranes, 2 pieces of it, and is spanned by wooden timbers that has just been asphalt overlaid. You'll see from pictures here in a little bit that some of the asphalt has been washed away since, and the wood timbers are visible, and you can see straight through down to the creek. With the storms that came up last year, there was some damage that occurred to the bridge. Staff went out and evaluated it at our level and also with consultants who routinely evaluate our bridges and determined it was best to close this at the time, given that it couldn't really handle the load that was going over it. Currently, the load rating on it is about 4 tons, which is, as anybody knows, really not a whole lot for a true bridge. It's only 1 lane wide, so it's kind of tricky to get across sometimes. And it actually costs us quite a bit of money because this is in such bad shape. We have to spend at minimum $6,000 a year for an annual inspection. Plus, every time there is a rain event over 1/4 of an inch, we have to have another inspection done at the cost of $2,500. So there's a lot of those that happen during the course of the year. As I mentioned, there's been some damage. As you can see from the picture on the left, chunks of asphalt with the wooden timbers showing straight through. Other damage that occurred during this storm, or during the storms last year, where this guardrail was removed. In the middle picture, you can see large vertical cracking happening in the bridge abutments. And in the right-hand picture, you can see large scour holes underneath the abutments where water is getting in and washing away underneath the abutment. You can also see where separation of the abutment plate or abutment pads have happened, large debris getting caught in the bridge itself, and the girders themselves, because of their being box construction, as soon as moisture gets in them, they just sit and settle and rust. There's many holes over this span. So our current plan, as we put in the CMIP for $150,000 next year, is to remove this bridge and clean it up to modern standards to allow Turkey Creek to flow and function properly. Currently, because of the height of this bridge, it is actually in the flood. It doesn't match the current flood elevations that the Corps has set forth. So removing it is really the only option at this time. We can't really rehab it. In the future, we do have two potential options we've been looking at since this is closed. The first option is to rebuild and replace a new bridge in this location. Current estimates looking at that range right now from about $5.5 to $6.5 million, depending on what design we decide to go with, and we can evaluate that further if a vehicle bridge is the desired option from the commission. Key things to keep in mind is that we must raise the bridge at least 8 feet to meet the new standards set forth by the Corps. This will span most of the floodway. That way, this blue highlighted area doesn't continually back up because of water and obstructions hitting the bridge. Other things to consider is there is a railroad crossing right down here that is at grade. So we'll have to make sure that we can get down in front of that in time, improve the crossing for heavier traffic flow, and then get back around to underneath I-35. Or if we decide to span that, we'll have to go over that by a minimum of 25 feet and then back down under I-35, which creates some grade issues. So that's what we mean by the vertical clearance with I-35, the at-grade railroad crossings, other right-of-way considerations and utility easements, and then maintaining access to the House of Rocks. Because as you can see in this red highlighted area, that is all property owned by House of Rocks with Turkey Creek flowing through it. They use this back portion back here to stockpile some of their materials. If we do move forward with a newer bridge, we will be working with them on entrances, but also making sure that they are providing the proper protection to Turkey Creek because they do have large rocks and stuff out there that as floodwaters rise can potentially fall into the creek and impede the creek flow itself. Option 2 that we've looked at is a bike pedestrian type route. Because it is an area that does see a lot of traffic for bike ped because you can get to Johnson County fairly easily. The estimate for this is still around that same range, so about $5 million. All the site constraints are still the same for the same purposes, and even more so for ADA compliance with bike and pedestrians because you have to have less grades for those kind of things. We'll also need to improve the lighting back in there because there is none currently, and if we're going to be telling people this is a safe path to travel, we want to make sure it's secure for them and lighted properly. And also the railroad crossing in this location doesn't have the needed pedestrian elements as far as panels for crossing and stuff like that. So if you're taking a bike or walking back there currently, you're bouncing around over the tracks as opposed to having a smoother transition. This area has also been a potentially identified by the Mid-America Regional Council and their Metro Green Trail system. Can't really see it all that great, but about right here is where we're talking about. This is one junction for a proposed 10-mile stretch of trails that goes from KCMO to Johnson County. That not all of it has been completed yet. Other portions have. This is a long-term plan that was set out in 2007, and not a lot of it's really come to fruition yet. But this plan was done with the fact that that bridge was already there. The fact that we have to remove this bridge, we will hopefully be working with this committee to try and find a more suitable crossing. That way we don't have to put a bridge back here if it's not deemed necessary. If we do decide to move forward with this option, we will defer the lead on it to Parks and Recreation as off-street trails are more within their realm. Public Works will then assist with the management of the project and construction because that's more of what we do. Anybody have any questions?
Of course, I do.
Of course.
So that particular bridge, then we need a crossing, in other words, from the south side to the north side for this bike pedestrian trail that Mark, I mean, I'm just trying to understand where they're planning on putting the.
If we could zoom into this a little more, you could see it, but on Mark's Metro Green Trail system, this is called the Turkey Creek Trail Network or Streamway Trail.
Right.
You can zoom in and look at this a little bit, but these black paths that you can see are the on-street trail portions. Anywhere else in between is meant to be kind of an off-street trail, and this is one that was identified to cross right over the creek and get back down to an on-street going through a small light industrial park and along up until you get to Lamar, and then once you cross Lamar is when you can get into more of the off-street type trail areas. It would be our recommendation to find a different crossing that is more suited for that kind of traffic.
That's one of the reasons I was asking. And if Mark is, wanting to contribute money to this trail, then I'm sure they would be helpful in finding an alternative manner.
That is the goal, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But my question is 5.9 million to replace the bridge and 5 for a bike bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And so couldn't you have a bridge and a bike?
The new vehicle bridge will have bike ped implements on it as far as a sidewalk and stuff like that.
And
so yes, it would meet that.
do I understand correctly that the bridge is in its current state is used primarily for access to one business?
Let's see, I can show you on this one. Primarily, our current average daily traffic totals or counts on this road were 20 to 30 vehicles a day. This was taken a couple years ago. We actually had plans to collect new counts on this literally the day before the rains hit and we had to close it. But the primary things that happen are traffic from the backside of House of Rocks. They take their loaders with loads of rock and move up to their front yards. Or a little off the map here, let's see if I've got it on this other map. Nope, unfortunately I don't. Below the screen here, there is a small light industrial park that does see some traffic coming from that way, but it does have the entrance off of Lamar, and which has the intersection with I-35, so that sees the majority of their traffic. Like I said, 20 to 30 vehicles a day is not really a lot.
So we're going to tear this bridge down?
Yes. At this point, we have no choice at that.
The business in question still has access
Yes.
to what they need for their product?
Yes.
And then the question becomes, what, if anything, should we do
right
in the future?
That is correct.
And that is not...
It's not something we're looking for an answer for tonight. It's something for a prior discussion when other funding options can be explored and other needs could potentially be addressed.
And tonight is an information-only item.
Correct.
And the big information is we're taking down that bridge, and putting anything back there is very expensive.
Yes.
That's the information. Any comments?
Understood us perfectly.
Commissioner Kane.
I'm good. I like his answer before.
Okay, and Commissioner Johnson.
25 to 30 vehicles that are currently or had been traveling over there. What will be their option at this particular, once the bridge is taken down?
There's nothing going across it now. For the past year, it's been closed. They have found an alternate route.
There should not be anything going across that.
No. The best option is if they're on Merriam Lane, they travel down to 24th Street on the Wyandotte County side or Lamar on the Johnson County side, cross over I-35 and enter the business park.
So there's an alternative route to get
absolutely, there. Yes.
Well, at least it's safer.
And that route is the main route in. So the other route was just a back way in, kind of a shortcut for people. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that brings some clarity to it.
If you've ever been back here, literally once you get underneath I-35, it turns into about a one-lane road, and it's basically gravel. And then you cross over a one-lane bridge that is basically, you can see the timber deck. Mm-hmm. It is not a very...
I've made a rule of not going down one-lane gravel roads anywhere.
Yeah, I'm with Commissioner Johnson on that one. All right, so there's nothing for us to decide. This was an information item, and we really appreciate it.
That's correct. Thank you very much.
I'll call you by your correct name next time I see you.
It's fine. I've been called worse.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, and we'll transition our next team up to the front here. And we will hear an update on our waste management and recycling programs. And Mr. Nick, are you going to kick this off? Mr. Souther.
Thank you, and it's been about a month since we last talked, and we have a little update to give you for tonight. At the last committee meeting that we had, we basically looked at the current issues that we were having, and they basically boiled down to 3 items. One was the late service. Secondly, we looked at the trucks, and thirdly, we were looking at the routes. In reference to the service, we found that a lot of times the residents weren't being picked up till like 7 to 7:30 at night, and off and on there were times when the trash and recycling was not picked up until the next day. Secondly, we thought that we needed more trucks, both recycling and trash trucks. And then thirdly, we looked at the routes. And the routes currently as they exist are between 12 and 15 a day. And there's a difference between 2,500 from one day to another day. So that makes it real difficult logistically for waste management to try to get that same amount of trucks out on the street each day.
So I'm going to clarify 2 quick things that you just said.
Yes.
What you're discovering is not an even count of households per day.
Correct.
And long hours on the truck.
Correct. Correct.
Go ahead.
So we've had weekly meetings with waste management. We've talked about the complaint resolution with 311. And tonight we're going to be proposing some solutions to those problems with some daily route changes to even that out. Also public messaging plan for the implementation of that. And we are continuing to work with the BPU to get a residential house count. And also we have revised a tagging system in which individuals have things out that aren't in compliance, and they can tag them and let them know, educate the residents why it wasn't picked up. And also we've been working with the employee retention and recruiting issues that waste management does have. And I think what we're going to be talking about tonight will help out with the retention efforts. With the 311 tracking process, all calls are being directed to 311. Waste management now has access to the 311 system so that when a complaint comes in, within a few minutes, they're able to have someone actually get the complaint, and then they can route that out to a truck to get addressed. So that's a real good thing. And then they're also entering in resolution right into the computer so that we know. If cases are not resolved, then we're going to have a process set up that will contact waste management to find out what if it's not already in the computer, what the situation might be. We're also going to spot check some of the inspections of the complaints that they say are resolved. And if something is not resolved, we will go out there and check out those field with a field inspection. How will this improve service? Well, first of all, we're looking at, like I said before, 12 to 15 routes a day. It's proposed to go to 16 trash routes a day. So every day they'll have the same amount of trucks on the trash. And the numbers will even out the homes that are serviced daily. So you can see the range was at 785 to 900 currently, and we're looking at 657 to 713, which will help with the problem of not enough trucks. There'll be more trucks put out onto the streets. We're going from 67 trash trucks a week to 80 trash trucks, and we're going from 22 recycle trucks to 27 a week. So that will definitely help out with the management as far as consistency with the drivers. They can all stay in Wyandotte in KCK. going to reduce the amount of hours that they're working to 10.34 from 12 to 13 a day. It is going to impact approximately 14,800 homes. Most days, we're trying to get it where the days are after their current trash day. But I'm going to show you. You can read all them streets, can't you?
Sure.
But this is just the current trash days.
Just walk us through that, since the little dots are so tiny. Will you just tell us, for the public and for us, what color is what day?
Red is the Monday. It's basically above, north of parallel, west of 635. If you go to the yellowish, that's Tuesday. Green is Wednesday. Blue is Thursday. And the purple is Friday. If you take a look at that Friday route, when I went out on Friday route, some days checking it, you can put 150 to 200 miles on your car in a day. I mean, it's huge. It goes all the way from Johnson County border all the way up to Leavenworth border. So logistically, it's something that needs to be changed. Now, there's the proposed, and I believe that we'll probably be able to get some maps that will be a little bit easier for everyone to read here. But basically, if you take a look at where all the colors are, Monday is going to be the red part, so it consolidates everything there together. And Monday's route was the huge route, and they're going to take a lot of houses off of Monday so that it'll be easier to pick up. Tuesday is the yellowish, and Wednesday is the green. Thursday is the blue. And Friday, they purposely did the rescheduling so that Fridays were just a few less houses, so that you don't have so it's easier for them to get it up, and we don't have to worry about stuff being out on a Saturday. So those are, and logistically, this will make it a lot more efficient for them to operate. The public messaging, we're looking at 2 direct mailers to be sent to the affected homes. We'll have a website link that they can check pickup day, be using social media. I think Waste Management has phone blast. Special emphasis is going to be on the houses that move up one day. If you move back one day, it's not going to have quite as much of an impact as when you're moving up on them. So we're going to try to do that. We'll be identifying homeowner associations and neighborhood groups and getting in touch with them and letting them know about that. We'll also be working with livable neighborhoods with newsletters and with the neighborhood groups. And we just want to emphasize everyone to utilize the 311 telephone number. At this point in time, we are looking at beginning the messaging and implementation sometime in the 4th quarter of this year. It's going to be dependent upon the resources available that Waste Management has. So the absolute day will be set by them, but we're looking at the 4th quarter. There are going to be some hiccups, I guess you could say, in the transition period, but I'm confident that we can work through everything. The Waste Management customer service and 311 will be assisting, as well as a lot of other individuals, and they will have some extra trucks available for the first couple weeks, because no matter what you say, people don't always listen, and the way they learn is the hard way, by putting it out on the wrong day. So I think once the word of mouth gets out there too, that'll help us a lot. And I think, like I'd mentioned before, that by making these routes, all 16 routes, the same amount of trucks each day, they're reducing the number of houses, they're reducing the number of hours per day that the personnel has to work, that should help with their retention, because we hit that quite heavy last time about being able to keep employees. So this is just a little bit of what some of their recruiting efforts are going on right now. They're offering a $4,500 sign-on and a non-experienced bonus of $2,500. And then they're aggressively working to recruit.
All right, so thank you very much. Comments and questions from the committee members? Commissioner Markley.
Just a comment. So I kept getting phone calls about trash, but at my house it wasn't an issue, and I didn't realize why that was until I saw this map and realized that Friday, mine is on the Thursday route, the other half of Turner is on the Friday route, and I was getting all the calls from that Friday area. So I know there will be some frustration with this change, but I think all you have to do is look at that map to realize this is a change that's long overdue when that truck is trying to go all the way up to the northern part of our county and collect all the trash down by Johnson County line. That's a huge route. So I appreciate that some people will be frustrated by the day change, but I hope they can also see why it's important to the long-term solution here that we make that change and make the routes make some sort of logical sense.
Thank you. And it's been many decades, if I'm not mistaken, since we've made any route changes. Is that right? Yeah. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. You know, it's like when you put a bone out in the yard, the dogs come and they fight over it when there's an issue at hand. And if we had not had the same issues coming up, we probably would not be having these conversations. In my opinion, Waste Management has brought this focus upon themselves. And I guess what I'm looking at is the number of complaints that come in, and to be able to identify on a consistent basis how we're doing or how they're doing. Is there a way for us to know that on any continual basis?
Well, with 311 system that we're working at right now, we can track all of that.
Will you be able to come back at some point and kind of give us a sense of how it's going?
Yeah.
These proposed changes. I think that, you know, when these things are continually brought to our attention, and I mean, I've had some irate constituents, and I mean irate, and have had to work real hard to get them to understand that we're, you know, ongoing some changes here. So I'd just like to be able to see over a period of time, whether that be, I don't know, 30, 60, 90 days, how our progress is going in terms of and I think one of the ways at least that you identify your progress is you see that complaint number going down is very simple. So I'd like to be able to see some follow-up at some point, at a point or a time that is convenient for everyone.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Well, I'm still not satisfied with their service. You know, and I don't believe your family is either. And even after we complained that commission night on the Thursday, the following Monday, my trash was picked up Tuesday morning at 6:45. So my neighbors were taking pictures and sending them to me. And we didn't have this problem before Waste Management took it over. So the problem is Waste Management, not the people that work there. So I hope these changes work, but if they're not, I'll be the first critic to let them know.
Sure. Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
Is this the first time that we as a unified government have worked with another company to help them take care of their issues? If you understand what I mean to this extent. I'm seeing, you know, some of this up here, but we've played a part in some of this. Is that correct? In trying to help them out?
Well, I think just by looking at the numbers, this is something that should have been done a long time ago as far as the routes. I don't know if that answered, I don't know
Okay,
if I understood your
so
question.
basically, we're working with them to tell them what needs to happen to make it work.
Yeah, I think it's mutual. Both parties have said that this is a solution to a possible solution to the problems.
This has been a long time. If this were a time period which, you know, you're trying to decide whether you wanted to actually say I do, you know, to the marriage with us together, you know, I'd have a tough time going down that road. I'm kind of like with the two other commissioners, and I appreciate our efforts. I'm not really sure I understand in some cases why it's really taken this length of time. And then I'm also not really pleased with the 311 system involvement in this. I haven't heard great things from the folks that have used it. So I'm just going to put that in there right now and tell you, please, 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 somebody do something to make that work, okay?
Couple of comments and I guess questions. Number one, I have the sense that in general we have seen improvement of late. Would somebody tell me whether that's true or false? Just overall, I'm getting fewer complaints.
Depends on who you ask.
For me, my email, I'm seeing fewer complaints, and so that's leading me to believe that we're seeing improvement. So if somebody wants to just address that in general.
And I'm getting complaints.
And you're still getting complaints, okay. And you're getting them. See, I'm not getting them every week like we were there for a while.
To answer, I think it's somewhat inconsistent. Justin Vetch, I'm with Waste Management. I oversee the operation here in Kansas City. And answer your question honestly, I think it is somewhat premature to understand if there has been any tangible improvement just because we haven't had the time since really going through this and implementing 311 to measure that and get the word out to measure the calls. This plan, hopefully, our desire is that it will allow us to stabilize our workforce that services KCK and provide a quality service through the continuity in those routes. So with that comes a service improvement that we're hoping for.
Okay. And Tim, Nick, I'm going to let you maybe speak to this one. The 311 issue, there was a very specific reason that we had directed and requested that our folks who have a complaint or comment or question deal directly with 311, and I would like maybe if you to expand on that just a little bit.
I think one of it goes right back to Commissioner Johnson's question. You know, in the past, you know, people called Waste Management, people called the mayor's office, people called the commissioner's office, people called Public Works. Right. If we can get 311, now we're going to have one central location where we know what the numbers are. Now, we've talked, though, is that I know Commissioner Kane will hit on this, is there's a lot of people who are just tired of calling. So those complaint numbers are a little, you know, yeah, they are down, but, you know, I've called 5 weeks in a row. I'm tired of calling. It's the same old thing, you know. But at least the 311, and, you know, another thing that we've implemented over the last couple of months is at the end of the day, we get a report from Waste Management of how they did for the day, or all the routes completed, what's not completed. One thing we're going to try to work on, and hopefully won't have too much longer, is trying to find a way to get that out to the public if we can, so that if we can get it on Facebook or something, that we can do that with our new engagement person coming on, people will know to not expect them till tomorrow morning. They completed their route, they've done their X amount of hours, they'll be there first thing tomorrow morning. So
I guess and I appreciate what you're saying, and my point is we all of us must work together to direct these issues to one channel. and the channel is 311, and that's what 311 is for. And Commissioner Philbrook, I mean you specifically, but anybody, you know, I think this team would be interested in what is the limitation you see within 311, and you don't have to express that tonight unless you want to, but you know, we've got to legitimately hear that and know what is the issue with 311, and you may not be the only commissioner that doesn't like that. I don't know, but we've got to know. We can't problem solve if we can't get to what the problems are. Commissioner Kane.
You know, I get the part about they come the next day. I live in the middle of the addition, and they got to my house at 6:45. So they were waking people up as they're coming through the neighborhood. I never have like 311 either. And they bought them out. They agreed to do the work. They're not doing the work. And I'm more than frustrated because it hasn't gotten any better since we complained the first time. And you would think there'd be some road to improvement, and you're right, they're not calling. They quit calling. They just shoot me emails, hey, send somebody to pick up my trash. I'm tired of calling 311. I'm tired of doing this. And to be honest about it, I'm tired of talking about it. You know, our people pay to have the trash picked up. They need to pick our trash up, and they need to do it in short order.
Commissioner Philbrook.
So the 311 issue, it's not that I don't like the concept of 311, and it's not that I don't want people to call 311. Every time I go to the meetings, I say call 311 because we're trying to make this work. But 311 isn't working yet to the way we want it to. Because if I get phone calls back from people, I'm not very pleased because they've called 311 and they feel like nothing's happened or they haven't heard anything back, then that makes it hard for me to keep telling them to call 311. See, that's my dilemma. I want 311 to work. I don't want the phone calls. I don't want people getting mad at me because I asked them to call 311, but things don't happen. You see, it's kind of like a catch-22. So that's my thing about it. It's not that I don't like 311. I just want 311 to work the way we intend it to work. That's all.
Commissioner Johnson.
Just one quick question. The proposed changes, in particularly having more trucks, and it sounds like more personnel, is that going to cost us any more within our current contract, or will there be any adjustments that have to be made as a result of that?
No changes.
Okay.
Couple of comments. First of all, Lynn Melton's here in the audience from the mayor's office, and Lynn, I just want to thank you publicly because I think that you've been right in the middle of this ever since you came here to start working, and it's not an easy situation. It's not an easy fix. It's not an easy issue, and I, for one, appreciate that diligence on your part, and we are working, I would say, very hard to come to some sort of improvement, resolution, et cetera. And that is why this group is coming to us regularly, because it's not a small issue, and we need to stay informed on what steps are being taken and when and if improvements are made. I want to stress 311. I'm going to stress 311. It's the mechanism we're using, and I'm going to ask the public to use 311 as the mechanism for reporting when a pickup does not occur as it should. And the next thing is, as far as what I'm calling, as the route adjusts, what I'm calling it is moving your trash, potentially moving your trash day a day forward. And by that I mean you were a Tuesday, now you're a Wednesday. I appreciate that effort of, did I say that right even? The other way. Now I'm confused. Say it back to me, because the whole point I was trying to make was That way, if you put your trash out on the wrong day, you haven't missed your day.
Correct. Out of the 14,800, I think it's about 2,700 will go like Wednesday to Tuesday.
Okay, yes.
So, and that's why we're stressing that, because yeah, if their normal day is Tuesday and we move them to Wednesday, then they put it out Tuesday by mistake, then it'll get picked up the next day.
Okay, I think I
Flip-flopped.
did say it almost right.
Correct.
If it was Tuesday, it could possibly be Wednesday,
Correct.
which means if I put it out on Tuesday, I haven't missed my trash day.
Right.
Okay, so I appreciate that effort. And the timeline for that is,
Well, that was the key. They've taken, and Justin will be the first to admit that they've been hammered, and deservedly so. What they don't want to do is they don't want to kick this off and not have enough staff out there. So we think when they get ready, we want to shoot for the fourth quarter. When they get ready to implement this, we're thinking a 6-week timeline for us to send out, they'll send out a first postcard which says your day change is coming. Those will be to the affected people. Then 2 weeks down later, they'll send another one as a reminder. So we think it'll be a 6-week once they know when we're ready to go, and then go from there, along with all the Facebook and all the other public messaging we'll get out.
and it's a targeted postcard. I'm only gonna get one if my day is changing.
Only if your day is changing, correct.
Commissioner Philbrook.
One other question. You were talking about getting the notice out. I know that BPU is a wonderful partner for us. Wonder if they put a blurb on their bill, to tell people that are targeted in that area. Just a question, because that's not gonna cost us a bunch of money, and people will get that information, because, oh, doggone it, they get a bill.
Actually, Waste Management's they'll be sending the postcard, so.
You don't want BPU to play any part in that.
We could, but
It's just a question. I'm just trying to understand, in some cases, why we don't use least expensive ways to send things out.
Kurt had a good point. I don't know with BPU, since they won't be sending it to, we've done them in the past, but they've gone to everyone. I don't know if BPU would be able to separate each address that goes to it, so.
I don't know.
So segmented and targeted
The ones that,
mailings with your BPU bill. Mr. Groneman, any comment on that?
I'd have to check and see with the people there, I don't know.
I mean, you may as well at least check.
Because you never know, we may be asking you to do something for something else.
Yeah, I mean, you may as well at least point us to, somebody within the correct department that might be able to answer more specifically about whether they can do targeted mailing or not. Could be an interesting, I was thinking of like an insert. Yeah.
Well, an insert would be, yeah.
So just, my last comment is simply back to the jobs, the job availability. Sir, your name again?
Justin.
Would you tell us about that, not only that sign-on bonus, but the training program and just the fact that it's actually a good job with benefits? We're giving you an opportunity here because these are jobs for members of this community and opportunities for our residents to work right here in Wyandotte County, make a decent wage, and have not only a sign-on bonus, but the benefits and the things that could come. So do you want to just take 1 minute on that?
I can hit the high levels for you because I could go into great detail, but I'll just do the high levels. So if you come to Waste Management as an experienced driver, there's a $4,500 sign-on bonus once you start, and the compensation varies based on your years of service. If you come with less than a year of commercial driving experience, there's a $2,500 sign-on bonus, and the compensation is pretty set because you don't have those service years to back you. We also offer a $2,000 bonus that is not up there that will be given after your first year of employment as a retention bonus. The brightest thing that we probably do that's really tough to highlight on is if we have individuals that come to us, and KCK is the only place where we utilize helpers on the back of our trucks. So if you have somebody that comes to us to work as a helper to throw, they do a good job, we will hire them on, we will send them to Florida, pay for everything, flight, travel, meals, put them up for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, do all the training, get them their CDL, and bring them back under the wage of a starting driver and offer training from there. Many of our drivers, we get stuck in the residential line of business. Many of our drivers are within other lines of business and promote upward and have been with us many, many years. Our issue is primarily in the residential, and that's what we do to address it.
Well, I appreciate it. The only reason I bring it up is because outside of just talking about waste management and trash pickup, we do, as a commission, spend time talking about workforce. We spend time talking about jobs for people who live in our community, and the fact that many of our young people do not want a pathway to college. They want something else, and there are things in the community they can do, trainings and certifications they can get that can give them a living wage, and this is one of them. Commissioner Philbrook.
So when you talk about living wage, I mean more than $15 an hour.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I'm nailing it down. Because one living wage to one person versus another, that's a whole different ballgame. So and I know you don't want to talk about exact money, and I'm not going to ask you to, but I'm going to ask you to kind of give me a range of per year, not including benefits, of what a regular CDL truck driver for you would make.
Range per year varies greatly.
That's fine.
I will tell you that the lowest you could possibly come in at with no experience, that we brand new, will come in at $17 an hour. Everything from there is above. We also have a wage adjustment that every 6 months after you come in, you're getting a raise of 50 cents until the 3-year mark, and then it's a performance-based increase. And we also have a merit increase that, based off of your performance coming in the street, every quarter that performance is looked at and adjusted, and you can make additional $2 an hour. So you could come in off the street, make 17, work for 6 months, and be at $19.50.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you for being succinct with that. I do appreciate that, because the dollars do count when you say them out loud. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and I didn't want to dwell on it. I just wanted to make it a point that these are jobs that can be filled by people in our community. And any other comments or questions on this issue? All right, that was information only. Commissioner Philbrook.
And the other thing is that if Workforce Partnership is not already a partner helping you to find employees, please contact them. That's Kansas Works.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Information only on that item, and the last item is an update. We'll make a little quick transition here. We have our new fire chief with us, I believe, Mr. Chief Callahan. Welcome.
Thank you.
And this is an update on our new fire station at Hutton and Leavenworth Road. We've got Jack Andrade, John Kelly, our new fire chief, and a gentleman I do not know.
Kyle Morrison.
Thank you very much. Okay, who's going to take it away?
Well, I'm going to start real quick by just saying this evening this will be the first of a series of updates that we'll be giving for the new fire station. So Kyle's got a little presentation that we'll start with, but like I said, just wanted to thank everybody for this time, and we'll get started. Go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm Kyle Morrison. I'm an architect with Arc Images Incorporated. We're very pleased to have been selected as your architect for this new station on Hutton Road. Arc Images has a long history of design for firehouses, completing 50 or 60 over the last 25 years. This includes both new and renovation projects, as well as prototype design for fire departments. This slide is our projected schedule for completing the design portion of the work. We started in the project in July. We're working with a committee of fire and building and logistics personnel, and started at a very high level in talking about wants and needs and aspirations of what this station should be. Project delivery, the construction of the project is planned to be a construction manager at risk. That request for qualifications went out. We had 6 very good firms submit. 4 of those have been selected for interviews, and the interviews are tomorrow. So within a couple of weeks, we hope to have that entity on board as part of the team as well. The advantage of this early contractor involvement is on several levels, but primarily schedule and cost control. They are part of the design process and will be helping us with cost all the way through. The design work progresses from that very high-level discussion through more and more detail as we go. And there are several points in that process where we'll be asking for pricing updates from the construction manager. We're planning to submit for the development review, the development plan review process in late September, and that should be concluded by the end of November. We are currently planning on 2 separate bid packages. Let's see, is that the button for, which one of these is the button for the pointer?
For the pointer,
the red, okay. So the first bid package down here is intended to be a site grading package. Our soils report recommends that in areas where we have quite a bit of fill, which we will have a lot of cut and fill, that we burden the site and let it sit for a time so that the underlying soils can compact. So that would be the intent of having the first bid package out in December and start grading, site grading, hopefully around the first of the year. The second bid package then would be in March out here at the same time that we submit for building permit with a construction start in, we're projecting about the 3rd week of March. After that, we currently, without a building designed yet, we are anticipating 10 to 12 months of construction before move-in. The site, as you may know, is on Hutton Road, just south of Leavenworth Road. It's a 4.5-acre site. It's zoned AG with 50-foot front yard setbacks and 25-foot side yards. We're using the north half of the site, approximately. The south half much of the south half would then be available for a neighborhood park or some kind of a use like that. In our concept that we're developing right now, we're right around a 12,000 square foot building. The floor plan is organized to minimize response time. On the north side, we have support spaces, and then the apparatus bays, and the south part is what we call the living spaces of the fire station. The exit apron goes directly to Hutton Road. There'll be some public parking and then the staff parking around in the back. 8 bunk rooms and 2 captain's office bunk room combinations. So that's kind of an overview of where we're headed. We're intending to design a long-lasting, durable, and energy-efficient building that is storm resilient and that will serve the department for a very long time. I'm looking forward to coming back and updating you and showing you our progress as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Merkley?
So you mentioned as you were introducing yourself that you've done prototype work. Is there a thought that this design would be a prototype or a guideline for future stations in our community, or is that not being considered?
That is part of our intended process is that as we complete the design of this one, we'll move right into the prototype process and develop a prototype booklet that really just documents all of the decisions that were made through design and the design intent and what we'll try to make it so that it can be a tool to use in renovating stations in addition to the prototype for new stations.
Commissioner Kane?
Well, I like what I see so far. Unfortunately, we voted on it last year, so it'll be almost 3 years before we completed something that we're in dire need of out west. And it went from being done in the spring to the summer to now the next spring. So I guess my frustration level's still there. And I don't know why it would take that long to build a fire station. Don't have a clue. And I know that the dirt work where it sits, I'm humble about that. But I originally said that if they don't break ground here this summer, it won't be done until late next year. And I was 100% right. And I still believe to this day that staff dragged their feet because they didn't want to put it out there. And now that we've forced them to do it, and unfortunately you come in a bad situation about this fire station, and none of this is intended towards you or Jack, but I'm frustrated that here we are, exactly what I said, went down exactly the way I said it was going to go down. And that this is like waste management. Oh, well, we're getting there. We're there. And technically, what have we done? Very little. And I cannot believe it's going to take that long to build it. And I cannot believe that it's taken this long to get where we're at today. And we were told, we voted on it, we were going to do it. And when staff doesn't follow through, then you're going to upset commissioner. And in fact, the entire commission could be upset because if this was in your area and you were underserved already, how would you guys feel about it? You know, October 31st, I took my first ambulance ride. And I was thankful that those guys from 123rd Street got there as quick as they did. But what happens if somebody isn't as lucky as I was where I made it through that night? So this is very important to the community. And I want everyone watching on TV, I'm working my tail off to get this done. And it will get done. And like everything else, I hope that you hire union workers to perform the function because you'll get it done right, you'll get it done fast, and you'll get it done just the way it's supposed to be done.
Couldn't agree more on that comment. Commissioner Johnson.
So if the start date is March of 2019, and we're talking a 10 to 12 month, so that we're saying by March of 2020, we're feeling very strongly that this fire station will be completed.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to get that for the record.
Question, what's the budget? Would somebody remind me again the budget of this project?
$4 million.
For the project. In the lower half of the project area, I see a rectangle.
That's kind of a placeholder right now for a detention area. We know we need a detention area, but honestly, we haven't progressed the design to really size that. That rectangle is a worst case.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We do appreciate keeping updated on the project.
Look forward to coming back.
Commissioner Philbrook.
So you say you're gonna have a retention pond on there? Is that what you just said?
I said detention.
Oh, detention. Just, you know. And so, all right. That's
okay. All right. If there's no other questions or comments, we thank you for the update. We will see you soon. I believe that might be our last item. So that will conclude this meeting, and we do have to wait till 6:30 before we can convene Administration and Human Services, and
You're on break.
you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Ready to circle back up? Circle the wagons, folks.
Yes, boss, I'm here.
I will now call this meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. We want to welcome everyone to this meeting. Public comment is welcome. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the Standing Committee agenda may do so when that item is up for discussion. You'll have up to 3 minutes to state your comments. Please use the microphones, everyone, for accurate recording purposes. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call, Philbrick.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Bynum.
Here.
Markley.
Here. We have one revision to tonight's agenda, not a new item, but an update to the existing item 3. A blue sheet was distributed providing an updated charter ordinance regarding the transient guest tax. Next, we have the minutes from our May 21st and June 18th meetings. We have 2 sets of minutes due to the cancellation of the July 23rd meeting for lack of items. Is there a motion to approve both sets of minutes?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes have been approved, and our first item is a request to accept a CDC REACH grant in the amount of $130,000 for the first year, if awarded, to reduce or prevent chronic disease. And Terry Breckeisen, Director of Public Health, is here to speak with us.
Thank you. I'm here with Zach Flanders from the Planning Department of the UG, and the KU is applying for this grant, and we will be sub-grantees for it to do chronic disease intervention activities. It's a 5-year grant, and the interventions will be formulated during part of the grant. And so it's a nice deal for our community, and there's 3 categories: physical activity, nutrition, and access to care. So that's what the grant is about, and we're excited if we get funded. It has been submitted, but we don't know if we've been funded yet.
Question?
A couple of questions. Chronic disease intervention, it sounds like it comes alongside our community health improvement very nicely, improvement plan, touching on several of those items that are being laid out for us in that plan that's going to come forward. Is there a mechanism within the grant that's going to help us measure chronic disease intervention improvements? I mean, we're trying to move the needle on our health outcomes. And so is this going to provide measurement tools that help us show that we are moving the needle on those items?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
That's fine. I just hope that as we, these are not small dollars, and it's people and their time and their energy and their hard work, and we're trying to change health outcomes here. And we're looking for measurements that show we are doing that.
The KU University Center for Research is the one that has applied for the grant, and they're all about that type of documentation and going from point A to point B and how long did it take, and charts and graphs and that kind of stuff. Okay. So the short answer is yes.
Thank you. And my last question, I think, is within the grant document that we saw in the agenda, it shows dollar amounts with specific names for staff positions, and I'm just curious, should we be successful, are we basically supplanting dollars for salaries?
We have some people who would be good at this, and they are under other grants right now that are coming to an end. So this would transition them into another kind of health education type of activity.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. As it relates to moving this needle, as we were talking about in terms of outcomes, I think we're beyond a point where we need to really start looking at specifics of how we're going to be to address this. Now, I know there are so many sub-factors as it relates to health outcomes. Some don't have anything directly to do with one's health per se, but they are things that ultimately will affect someone's health. I think we need to start looking at ways or identifying to what Commissioner Bynum is talking about, how, getting down into the weeds, which I don't like to do, but I think we're at a point, and we're beyond a point actually, of getting down into the weeds of how is this going to affect our health outcomes. You just happen to be bringing this particular request at a time that I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'd ask for your help and anyone else that can help us to have dialogues and understand how our efforts are helping change the health outcomes of persons who are in our community. We're still in the fourth quartile of health outcomes. We are doing better, from what I understand, but we still got a long, long, long way to go. And so the more we can do, I think, as commissioners and persons that can help direct our staff, I think, and the better knowledge, more knowledge that we have, I think the better we can address this issue and get that moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. On Thursday evening, the Health Department will be making a making a presentation at the special session of the Commission, and we'll be talking about the Community Health Improvement Plan, and these three topics will be brought up as very specific interventions are being planned that can then be monitored and assessed over the 5-year plan.
Commissioner Philbrook?
So when you do your presentation and you're going to be very specific about your plan, does that mean you're going to name out the exact chronic illnesses that you're going to be working with or problems?
For the Community Health Improvement Plan, well, there's 4 areas in that: safe and affordable housing, access to care, violence prevention, which are kind of unusual health topics, and education and jobs.
Okay.
So
with this one, with this particular thing that you're applying for, what are you going to be, have you decided what chronic problems you're going to be dealing with?
that's part of the 5-year plan on this grant, is to determine what we want to do first, second, and third. So there's kind of a planning stage in this grant.
Okay, not how you're going to do it as much as also what you're going to work on first. Okay.
That's why it's a unique grant, in that they've given us plenty of time to plan for what the intervention strategies will be.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There is no match requirement for this grant. If there are no further questions, I'll look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Bynum.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. And we will keep Terry here to present item number 2, which is a request to accept a SHARP grant in the amount of $200,000, if awarded, to decrease STI, HIV, and teen pregnancy rates in Wyandotte County.
We already have a wonderful relationship with USD 500, and we have been in that school district doing teen decision-making classes. And so growing up, getting older, there's responsible choices that need to be made, and we're already doing that. That grant is coming to an end. This grant helps us continue the good work that we've already done.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I will just note there is no match requirement for this grant either. Roll call on the motion.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Bynum.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. Thank you very much. Item number 3, that is our item with the blue sheet, if you're following along in your agenda, is the proposed revisions to the transient guest tax charter ordinance. And I show Patrick Waters, but it looks like Kathleen Van Aken is, oh, here comes Patrick, coming from the back there. We're going to have a dual presentation on this item.
Good evening, I'm Kathleen Von Atchen, the CFO, and we're presenting a proposed revisions to the transient guest tax ordinance for your approval. In your packet, you'll have a red line version and then a clean version. And there were a few minor legalistic kind of deletions in the blue sheeted version that was presented to you, so that were missed in the original version. So just to start from the beginning, the state statutes allow for local governments to levy a transient guest tax. Sometimes it's called the hotel motel tax for the purposes of promoting tourism and conventions. And the statute allows for that tax to be 2% of gross sales on the hotel motel and other transient occupancy gross sales. And so other transient accommodations could be also bread and breakfast accommodations. But home rule cities are allowed, and counties are allowed to exempt themselves from the provisions of these specific statutes in order to increase the percentage greater than 2%. In addition, another area of the statutes allows for pledging transient guest tax revenues for the repayment of debt that's issued on behalf of or to undertake redevelopment projects. So our prior charter ordinances have exempted the UG from certain state statutes. So the current transient guest tax is 8%, just so you know, of gross sales. Our proposed, which I'll talk about later, our proposed revisions do not change this at all. 8% is what we will continue with. And our ordinance specifically provides that the revenues are to promote tourism and conventions for the purposes of paying a portion of the principal and interest on bonds and to finance renovations of the Jack Reardon Civic Center and construction and equipment of adjacent hotel facilities. So pretty specific, and so we're going to talk about that later. In addition, the current ordinance breaks out the revenues to be spent, with 74% of them being promoting conventions and tourisms within Kansas City, Kansas, and then 24% promoting the same or tourism development within the downtown area. And then again, that statute related to the pledging TGT revenues for debt repayment on redevelopment districts is in place.
Commissioner Philbrook had a question.
Can I go back? Yeah. So that is what we're doing now, the 74 and the 24, or are we proposing something different?
We're proposing something different.
Okay, than this.
In a couple of slides, you'll see what we're proposing.
I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding this is what we're doing now.
The existing one.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, there's been some changes, and so this graphic illustrates it. Yeah. So the payoff of the STAR bonds resulted in an influx in transient guest tax revenue that was previously used to pay the debt service on our STAR bonds that paid for the Legend shopping area. So we're basically collecting about $2 million more a year. And so the current ordinance has us dividing that whole 3.5 or almost $4 million a year by those percentages, right? And then it also just restricts it to improvements with respect to the existing convention center. If we were to develop and build a new convention center in other areas of the city, then our ordinance wouldn't address those. So we felt that the commission needed to broaden or provide all of you the flexibility to make rational decisions about how properly to allocate the transient guest tax money according to the goal or objective of promoting tourism and conventions. So our proposal, and also just to give you a little history, this is the expenditure history here. And we've got it broken up by the different categories of expenditures. So we usually budget some contractual services, although it's not spent, it's sort of a reserve. because you never know what might happen coming up. Also, there's a little bit of commodities here, and I think those are related to assisting with, well, some of this contractual services and the commodities are related to assisting with the promotion of the different events that are happening at Memorial Hall. This big jump here is over $600,000 for renovation and replacement and rehab of the windows at the Memorial Hall. This series of bars all relate to the amount of funding that the unified government is providing to the Kansas City, Kansas Convention and Visitors Board or Bureau. So as you know, a new contract was entered into. I have a copy of it here, and you know, Patrick knows it really well. And so there was additional funding provided within that contract. Actually, in 2016, the CVB received a substantial increase, or they benefited from the payoff of the STAR bonds. So, because some of the reserves were designated as transient guest tax funds, so they got some of that too. So, but I think the contract actually went into effect in 2017. So, this is a debt service related to the Section 108 loan that helped with pay for the hotel, the Hilton Hotel, and we paid that off this year. So that those payments will no longer be taking effect. And then these are reserves to allow for appropriations for projects that that will be coming forward before you very soon. All right.
Question from Commissioner Bynum on that slide.
So on the very last column, the reserves, the 2018 reserves are a little over 2 million, correct? Yeah. And 2019 is projected just short of 1.5.
Yeah.
Can I?
Those match with the level of revenues that are coming in, and I could the 18 is to pay for is funding that's been authorized to assist in the payment of the grocery store, I think.
Okay, that.
Which one is it? Get them confused. Yeah.
So my question is, am I to add those two numbers together, or are we have projects we're going to spend those?
Well, no, we don't have specific projects in mind, but I apologize. I'm getting some of the projects confused.
That's okay. We have a lot of projects, which is that's a good thing.
The grocery store is coming from the special asset fund.
Okay.
From those reserves.
But my question is, am I adding 18 to 19 for a total of 3.5 million?
I don't have the budget book in front of me, but I'm almost positive, yeah.
Okay.
We don't approve budgets that that result in a negative fund balance. So there's quite a bit of funds available for future projects, and these are in reserve accounts, so they can't actually be spent out of reserve accounts. They're just set aside in case a big project comes up. And when they do, then they'll come before you and you'll approve it, and then we'll move the funds to the respective expenditure account or capital project account.
Okay, thank you.
Would that have anything to do with the possible building that might be happening out around the new American Royal? Is some of that would go to?
Well, there are, we did do an RFP and selected a developer to assist with evaluating our convention center kind of ideas for out in the Legends area or Village West, but those haven't been solidified yet, so.
They're not, okay, so
yeah.
I'm just kind of asking about possibilities for this money.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a possibility if. Thank you.
Yes. So the proposed revisions to the ordinance, as I mentioned, there's a couple of broad reasons behind it. First off, we want to provide broader language to allow for supporting other convention centers in addition to the existing Jack Reardon Civic Center. as I mentioned, we are evaluating the potential of a convention center out west. Also, these revisions provide the Board of Commissioners with more budgetary flexibility on how the revenues are to be spent. So because of the additional revenues that we're collecting as a result of the STAR bond payoff, they're substantially more than they have been in the past. And also then also the revisions reflect the changes that were made to the Convention Visitors Board current contract that we have. In addition, we've added some language, a little bit of language to strengthen our administrative collection efforts with regard to short-term rental or Airbnb for transient guest tax. And we are evaluating in the future potentially administering this transient guest tax perhaps on our own, and maybe entering into a specific contract or agreement with Airbnb so that we can better validate the collections of those short-term rentals. So, but that's a project that we, are going to evaluate and potentially do in 19. It's just an idea we have. That's not really part of this ordinance, but we did introduce some language to allow for that. And then lastly, this would, one of a key point for me is that right now, the only way in which we can provide transient guest tax revenue as part of a redevelopment project that is only specific to building a hotel or some other really tourist-related purpose. The only way we can do it right now is if we issue bonds. So it's really inefficient to issue $1 million in bonds. It's better to just collect the guest tax revenue and pass it on to the developer up to the cap based on the development agreement, and not incur all those issuance costs. And so right now it's the provision is a little restrictive, and so the language would allow for us to go do it on a pay-go approach. So I recommend your approval, and of course I would ask that if Patrick has any comments, he can. And then lastly, I do have Bridget Job here from the Convention and Visitors Bureau or Board, who would be happy to answer any questions you may have. I would like to mention that I worked with Bridget on developing these revisions, and then we also presented these revisions to her board last month.
Commissioner Bynum?
I think Commissioner Kane had some, and then I'll
Okay.
go.
Hello?
Up here.
Oh, Mike says I have to come up.
Yep. How is this going to affect your group?
That is a great question, Mike, and I thank you for asking that. I first of all want to thank Kathleen for involving me in this process, involving the Convention and Visitors Bureau. That is a very significant step. Past revisions to transient guest tax ordinances have happened, which we found out after they passed. So thank you for everyone to making sure that that partnership and that communication is happening. The board did review the ordinance, and we understand the need and the intent. We have one of our board members here. I think the only concern, and that's probably too big of a word, was the addition of the words expand and economic development. All previous transient guest tax ordinances have limited their use to promotion. And while we believe that this current commission is very supportive of and understands the need for the promotion of tourism, we don't know what future commissions will be. The reality is that the way this ordinance is written, all the transient guest tax could go to promotion, all could go to economic development. And my job is to assure that we have those dollars to adequately promote this destination that we have built. I say all the time, if you build it, they will come. Does not work in tourism. Everyone is competing for visitors to come to their destination. And we have had a very significant jump in our budget in the last couple of years, but I've been here for 20 years, and I was here for the many, many years when we were operating with the Legends opened with a very, very, very small budget. I believe that we have shown that we are using the dollars that is given to the Convention and Visitors Bureau in the best way we can to get the best results. I just wonder if there is some way that there could be some assurance written in here that not all the dollars would go for economic development, because even though $3 to $4 million is a huge amount of money, it can be spent just like that, and all of a sudden we don't have a way to promote and market our destination. So, and we are supportive. We totally understand the need. I don't want to imply at all that we do not understand that. We support this. We just are a little concerned about the future.
Kathleen and Patrick, can you speak to that concern and what discussions you may have had sort of during the negotiation process about that?
Yeah, so the wording that she's mentioned was the word expand, and which is in section 3 and section 4. And my intent in adding the word expansion actually did really specifically relate to augmenting or expanding the existing convention center we have downtown. That's what I really intended. But it doesn't really need to be in there, honestly, because promoting is what I also more emphatically believe we should be promoting it as a priority. But so it was sort of added as a description.
Can we take that language out?
The only other thing I would add, if you don't mind if I jump in, is the economic development. That can be interpreted so many different ways, and I understand why it needs to be in there.
Well, so the reason we add, and we have, it's economic development related to tourism. It's very specific, related to tourism. And actually the current statutes allow for transient guest tax revenues to fund the building of hotels but you have to do it through bonds, and we just want to change that so that we can do pay-go. So it's just changing how that's financed, the means for which it's financed.
And I can see her concern here because not too long ago, they tried to combine 3 entities, and the commission never stays the same, or very seldom stays the same. So I don't want to put them, they have to go out there and they have to do their job. They have to know they're going to have some substantial amount of money's coming in, that the staff is going to be so big, and that it has to, in order to grow, we're going to need monies. And the deal that was tried here a couple of years ago, where they were combining the 3 and going to rob Peter to pay Paul, and you guys were Peter. We need to protect them.
So we right now the contract with the CVB is through 2021, and beginning in 19, it's $1,050,000 plus any CPI above the prior year. So as you can see here, the amount of funding that the CVB's been getting has increased from roughly $650 in 15 to over $1 million in 19. So that funding is in there, and it will continue to 2021. And once this contract is re-examined and renewed, it would continue again for another 5 years. So
I guess the question is, why are we talking about it now then? Because I after what happened to them, and it was bad. And so if the contracts tell then they need to understand that at that certain time, they're going to come there and say, you got a lot of money, we're going to take some of it back from you. But they were doing bare bones for a long time. And the community has grown drastically because of them. And I just don't, if it was my project and they were coming after me like this, I might have been as upset I was about 20 minutes ago.
Well, I think the impetus for this discussion had nothing to do with the CVB contract. It had to do with our ability or inability to support a convention center outside of downtown, because the existing language only allows us to support a convention center called Jack Rutan downtown. So that's why we're talking about this ordinance tonight, not to be confused with any future negotiations of the CVB's contract. They're just looped into this because we fund them that way. So in the future, this language could impact those negotiations.
One thing's for sure, I'm all about a convention center.
Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. So thank you for clarifying the sort of origination of it, and I appreciate that and I understand that. So I'm glad you're here, because one of my questions as we were reading through our packet is, what's the position of the CVB, obviously, on this issue? My goal mirrors Commissioner Kane. I want language that protects the CVB. We've done a good job lately of giving you the stair-step increases you need to continue to market and promote Wyandotte County as a tourism destination. And I'm glad we did. And you needed it, and you will continue to need it, frankly, more and more and more, because we continue to grow tourism opportunities here. I would like some kind of language that protects exactly what you just said and exactly what Commissioner Kane said, and that is that we won't always be the ones sitting here, and there may be a future commission that decides we are doing just fine promoting tourism, and what we need is to spend our millions of dollars building stuff. And I can't support language that doesn't include protecting the CVB. I guess that's ultimately what I'm asking. And then finally, my specific question is there a language in the ordinance change that changes the makeup of the CVB board, or is that entirely a separate thing? Okay, so no language changes the board makeup, but I want language that protects the CVB.
Commissioner Philbrook?
Yeah, when I read it over, of course, I don't have that part with me tonight, but I did have a very similar question. I always get a little nervous when we create something that's, excuse the expression, loosey-goosey, and we don't have it, exactly what we have in mind as far as guidelines, because it's very easy for money to slip from one side to the other, because we handle a lot of money, not me personally, but as the unified government and doing our business. So I would also like to see a little bit more definite language in there. I don't want to rely on renegotiated contracts for this. I personally do not want to go through the same thing that we went through the last time. It was very contentious, and I don't want to have to go through that again, because we already know that the CVB has shown us a lot of good work, and they're paying attention to what's going on out there and I don't want to make them an afterthought in this conversation, because they're very much part of this. And I'm very much on the same line as Commissioner Kane and Commissioner Bynum as far as wanting a little bit more definite language.
So let me sort of poke a little bit and try to give staff some additional direction. From my CVB board seat, I'd love to have this tied to a percentage. From my UG commissioner seat, that might not be such a good idea. Are we asking staff to tie the CVB to a percentage? And we can't even really do that this year because they're under contract right now and it doesn't involve a percentage. So we are in an awkward situation if we are attempting to change the current contract that goes through 2021 by tying the exact amount to this ordinance, which if we did it by percentage, we would be. Or are we looking for something more like, we will never give less than X percent to the CVB so that we can make sure there's always funding in place for them?
Yes.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And I think, you know, at no time shall we unfund.
Then we need you guys to quibble about what that minimum percentage is. That will be for you to figure out and bring back to us what that sort of reasonable percentage is.
I like the idea, and the reason is, after you've been here for 13 years, we have a lot of times robbed Peter to pay Paul, and poor Peter's standing there with nothing, and Paul's so fat and happy he can't stand it. You know, we have to be fair to everybody, fair to the city, fair to the CBB, to all the entities. You know, this you'd be surprised at what I hear when people say, well, I saw that because I'm always asking, how'd you get here? Oh, well, we saw this, we saw that. It's the stuff that you guys have put out. And that's huge. And we're growing every day. As soon as we get a convention center, we'll grow some more.
And just a quick comment, I mean, I want to be clear, I want to support, you know, it's nice to see that reserve fund. And I appreciate your position on a different funding mechanism than bonding a $1 million hotel. I appreciate that. So I like the notion that the revenue's coming and that we can use it for tourism-related economic development. That's great. I'm just asking for the protection.
So I did want to, I'll give you an example. The mental health, mill rate, well, that doesn't have a specific dollar amount that's tied to the mental health contract we have, you understand? So, I mean, there is a precedent in the rest of our budget that assumes that those sorts of funding mechanisms are in place and will continue. So,
but we also have examples where that's not the case, where there is a specific percentage or amount that was supposed to go to a certain entity. Two other things I want to just make sure that we're giving you good direction. My sense is we're taking out the word expand, but we're comfortable leaving the reference to economic development related to tourism if we have this additional language that you guys will negotiate to tie to the CVB's ongoing budget.
I guess my question would be, how does the word expand preclude the other? Does it? Does it preclude a percentage, a lower, however we want to do, a minimum percentage, nothing falling below? Does that?
No, that doesn't have anything to do with.
I think Bridget's concern was just that expanding can be interpreted a lot more broadly than promoting.
I was physically talking about the physical structure downtown. Yeah. Okay. It's in Minnesota.
So we have taken your ordinance and sort of picked it apart. I think you're going to have to come back and visit us again. How long do you think it'll be before we can see you again?
Just next month would be okay with me.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Is there anything else you need me to ask these guys for direction on, or you think you have something to work with?
No, it's good.
Okay. Thank you all. I didn't take a motion on that because we weren't to that point, but we will see you guys again next month. Yeah.
Tabling it.
Yes. All right. That was item number 3. So we are moving along to item number 4, which is a request to expand the service area of the CHIP Down Payment Assistance Program with home funds. Wilba Miller, the Director of Community Development, is here to present this and the next item.
In a very low chair. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm coming tonight before you to ask for the CHIP service expansion area. you're looking at the current CHIP eligibility areas, and you can see that the east, well, north of the river, the east side of 77th Street is the boundary, and south of the river, 59th Street is the boundary. This map has been like this practically since the program got started. It basically follows the low and moderate income census tracts. I don't know what's happening here. But I wanted to come before you and talk about changing it for several reasons. One of the biggest reasons, as you know, we did a regional fair housing plan last year or 2 years ago. And one of the things that Mid-America Regional Council did was provide us with a map of recap areas. This is racially and ethnically concentrated areas of poverty. And if you look at it, I know it's not concentrated on Kansas City, Kansas, but you can see that it sort of follows that low mod census tract map. And one of the things that our fair housing plan expects us to do is to allow everybody the opportunity to get into areas of opportunity, like for instance, Turner or Piper. So what I'm asking the commission to do, because, well, there's other things too. The HUD income guidelines for 2018 increased. Income for a family of 4 was $59,850, now it's $64,000. Purchase prices for existing houses increased from $147,000 to $152,000, and newly constructed houses from $224,000 to $232,000. So HUD has acknowledged that the price of housing is going up, that income levels need to be adjusted. The adopted budget for CHIP would allow for 20 homes in 18 and 15 homes in 19. And I would like to do the expansion to the city limits of Kansas City, Kansas. Bonner and Edwardsville are not eligible.
Questions from the commission? I will say, just in general, this CHIP program is a great way to encourage people to move into our community. It's a great tool. So if you have realtors in your community who aren't taking advantage, or you have people who are looking to move here, they should be looking into this program.
Commissioner, I did look. Since 1993, we've done about 1,000, like approximately $9.5 million.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, Wilbur, can you, just for the persons that may be watching on TV, kind of just talk about the CHIP program, how it works, the mechanics of it?
Yes, sir. The current program offers down payment assistance to persons that meet 80% of the median area income. And it offers right now $14,999. And the persons that qualify must stay in their house for 5 years, must take care of their house and not get code violations, and must keep their taxes paid. At the end of that 5-year affordability period, that $14,999 second mortgage will be released. So they technically are getting approximately $15,000 off the cost of their mortgage, which also reduces their payments by that $15,000.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Bynum?
Just to clarify, the dollars that we spend on this program come to us through HUD.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct? Mm-hmm. And it's used as part of our community development.
Right. These specific program dollars are home funds. They're the second arm of our community development, home, and ESG funds.
And, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And they are primarily, all of those funds are used for housing in one way or another.
Okay. And my second question is just out of curiosity, will you be taking this also to Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee?
No, ma'am.
Okay. But it will come to full commission. I'm just.
I thought maybe I could get a yes vote here tonight. I wasn't sure.
You will get a yes vote, but then it'll go on the full commission consent agenda.
Okay.
I had a motion and a second. Were there any other questions from the commission? And if not, I'll take roll call.
Thank you.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Bynum.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. And our next item, also presented by Ms. Miller, is a update on the progress of the Park Drive Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area, NRSA area. Wilba, take it again.
Okay. So we did come before the standing committee and had sent a NRSA project to HUD and got it approved in January of this year. And we wanted to come before you tonight to tell you what we've been doing since that approval and where we're going. And I'm going to turn it over to Logan Massentine. She's been working on this, and I know that 2 of the commissioners have seen this in the last week, so I'll let her go ahead and go forward.
So first we wanted to talk about our community engagement efforts last month. We did quite a lot in the month of July. First, we held a walking event over 2 days. The mission was to educate and speak with residents, as well as invite them to a picnic the following weekend, and we also gathered data while we walked. So we had over 80 volunteers of UG residents as well as community partners. We knocked on nearly 1,000 doors, and we spoke with over 303 residents, so about 33% actually spoke with us. These are all of the participants from the unified government. We just wanted to list them out for you, as well as all of our outside partners that participated, who have been a great help in this project. I will also mention we did have Spanish translators in each small group that walked door to door, and we did use them as well, which I'll touch on again in a minute. So this is what we passed out when we were walking door to door. It is an infographic with information about the project, how you can learn more, as well as how you can help by being a good neighbor. And it's 11 by 17, big, colorful. We printed them on nicer paper so that hopefully people might hang on to them. The idea is a nice, concise piece that people can keep around with all that information. So we also used an app while we were walking, and we collected data. So this is the GIS Collector app through Esri. We worked with the GIS department to create it. And the picture you see here is color-coordinated chunks of the Park Drive area so that we could walk in small groups in each of those colors. And some of them are marked black because this was taken halfway through the walk, and the black ones we marked as we finished them. So it was a really efficient way to see where we were going and how much we were accomplishing. And then at each parcel, at each home, we had an address, we had some information, and then we could answer questions. So there were variety of questions, including things like, are there people over 65? And these were just observational, so we didn't ask anyone, we were just noticing what we saw. And we asked strategic questions that we could use. So this people over 65, we want to be able to connect them with resources for Area Agency on Aging. Children under 6, we want to connect them with WILBA and the health department's No Lead KCK program, the lead abatement. If there are code violations, we're still discussing how we want to strategize that, but we can either connect them with resources or we can go out and talk to them about their violations and how we can address that. And then we did want to note that this was a learning experience and that it was not used correctly necessarily by everyone. There were some hiccups, but we still got a lot of really good data out of it. And these are some of the totals. So we have all of the details with the addresses and everything, but these are just some totals to show you. So again, we stopped at 927 homes, maybe more because those are by parcel, not by living unit. And then we spoke to 33% of residents, so 303 homes. We did notice 67 vacant homes. We marked 60 commercial properties. We spoke Spanish with 91 residents. There were also 12 homes that spoke a language other than Spanish, 166 homes with children, and 128 of those probably under 6, and then the 179 code violations. And we separated those out by structural and environmental, and both. So then, as I mentioned earlier, we followed up with the walking event with a picnic that Sunday. And again, we had a ton of participation. I don't know if you can tell from the photos, but it was really hot. So was the walking event. But the idea here was to engage the community and have a bunch of resources and information available for everyone, as well as have fun events. So we had 21 UG departments and 9 community partners. We had tons of food and music and entertainment. We had face painting and games and informational booths and lots of fun stuff. So it was very hot, but we felt that it was a pretty good first try. And then again, a list of departments. and community participants. I also just wanted to briefly go over, we created this game through the SOAR initiative that we did have at that picnic. So it's kind of a spot the code violation or find the issue. And then I really like the back because it explains why each of them matters. And I was using it, I told kids they could have a piece of candy if they played the game. So we did have one actual numeric success from the picnic other than all of the participation. HEDC, the Hispanic Economic Development Corporation, actually had people sign up for some of their trainings. So they had 12 people sign up for computer literacy training, which meant that they could bring out a mobile lab. We did actually find out last week that that's not what they did. They ended up having them come to their KCMO location, but they had 40-some participants and 20-some, I still don't have the exact number, but 20-some of those people were from this area. So that was really great. And then 6 for QuickBooks training and 2 for business startup.
Okay, so Logan got all the good stuff, and here comes the bad stuff. Other than, I do want to acknowledge Carlene Kramer is sitting back here. She works for the USD Public Schools and has been a very good partner for us, and she's also a resident of the area. So we get a lot of good feedback from her. These are things we feel like we did well. The walking event, we had a lot of volunteers, a lot of UG volunteers, a lot of partners. We had door hanger bags, the app, brand new app, never been used before that we tried. We did do good manageable sections of blocks, and we had the chance to talk to people. The picnic, we felt City Park was a good location. We had a lot of different people attend. We had volunteers, resources, and vendors, and a lot of UG departments helped with the planning of the picnic. Lessons learned, it was hot. That was the big one. It was too hot in July. Of course, you know, it can happen in September. Look at the temperature today. It would have been hot today, too. The time of the day for the walking events, we went from 4 to 7. We went 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. Some people felt like that 4 o'clock was too early, that people were still at work, but other people thought that we still had plenty of people that did answer their door. The communication with the team before the event, again, that app was new. The user-friendliness, I think we're going to be able to use it for other applications, but it was kind of handy. We did put information in door hanging bags. We did not go into their property if they had a fence. One of the things that people talked about was we could have gone around to see if there were any bags just hanging on doors. But I kind of like the fact that they were hanging on doors. Is either they're out or maybe it's a vacant property. You don't know. The picnic, again, time of the year was too hot. The time of day was around the time that people were at church. I think we did from 1 to 4. We did it at the big shelter, so it was too far away from the street. A lot of people didn't realize we were up there with lack of signage, lack of comment cards. We did have some entertainment that there were some people were not exactly fond of. We had some poetry readings that was hard to hear. We could have had more, activities for kids. We could have had a better, we had a good sound system. It just could have been fine-tuned. So you can see that there was a lot of things that we could have done. But I think, all in all, we had really good participation with UG departments. That's really important so that people know that we're coming out to the neighborhoods and trying to help. Next steps, we've had already subcommittee meetings, and each one of those subcommittees, we've had people that volunteer to work on different things other than UG people, which I think is important. Also, this opportunity zone, this census tract was submitted as one of those. I don't know where we're going with that opportunity zone yet. I don't know if that has been approved by the president, but it was approved by state of Kansas. The next steps are street work. Public Works is going to do their first priority, which is North 27th Street from Park Drive to Riverview this fall. It includes partial curbs, sidewalks, and street resurfacing. resurfacing includes Reagan Field parking lot and driveway. These were a part of the adopted CMIPN budget. So do you have any questions for us?
Commission members, are there any questions? Johnson?
I guess I should go first or last, I don't know. But first of all, does HUD provide, I guess, goals? Maybe they've already done it and I just missed it in some of the information that's been dispersed. Do they provide overall goals of how this should go along during this 5-year process in terms of things that need to be done strategically over the course of the 5-year period of time?
What HUD provides us with are categories that you should be doing so much in public service, so much in public facilities, and so much in housing, housing and infrastructure. We come up with our own goals over that 5-year period of time, and our submission included those goals. And we had some that were set aside just specifically for 2017. I think these were there, but we do continue going on to the second year and the third year, and we will meet with our subcommittees and our stakeholders and our residents to see what goals we want to hit next as we move forward.
So then that is to say that there is in fact a way to measure our success during that period
Yes.
of time. That's what I'm really concerned about.
Yes. We do have some goals that we're concerned about as far as trying to drive the appraisals of the property up, trying to decrease delinquency for taxes. Those are going to be a little harder to measure, but I'm sure we can get that done. Maybe we can't reach the goal that we set, but we can at least make a dent in it.
Well, we put forth a yeoman's effort, and hats off to you and to everyone that's involved with that. I think that the amount of energy that was put into it was great. We reached a lot of houses, and so kudos to both of you all for the work that you've done and continue to do that. I would push back on those that talked about the poetry readings, and only because we allowed we wanted to get our young people.
I agree.
To be heard.
I agree.
They want to be heard, and maybe some people didn't like what they said, but that's one of the things that I think was a part of our overall goal, is to try to somehow make sure that we engage our young people. And, so whoever's listening to this, that's what it sounds like when we engage our young people.
Well,
like, back in my mom's day, they used to talk about rock and roll. I don't know.
Oh, I know. How terrible was that? No, I know. And it was just one of those things that we did get a few complaints, but we've got 4 more years to go. We're ending the first year around the end of September, and I think we'll be surprised at what we see going forward.
Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. First of all, before I go any further, I forgot earlier, I know how old Commissioner Johnson is, and today's his birthday. And so, and that's why I did it.
It's special because it's that special birthday, right?
It's a very special birthday.
I mean, how special is it?
Pretty special.
He's 21.
Oh, that's his gray hair.
That part's on Commissioner Kane. I was just wishing you a happy birthday. But I just wanted to say that, your reference to this, our parents didn't like rock and roll, and I went, oh.
You know what? I'm feeling really old right now.
But I do want to focus back in on this, although I do mean that sincerely. So I appreciate the desire to bring the youth in. I appreciate Carleen Kramer being here, because I think it's nice to have the school district on board. And I think the more we can do in that vein, in whatever way, I think the better off we're going to be in general. So the game, I like the game. And it might seem really silly, but I like the game, because to me that stuff falls in the category of stuff we never learned in school. It's that category of we should know from a very young age to be a good neighbor. So I'm appreciative of that. And I'm just going to say one more quick thing. When my kids were teeny, teeny, tiny, they were given a video about fire safety. be cool about fire safety. And I still can sing the song. That's how much they watched that video. So I like the game, and I like the engaging of the young people in whatever mechanism works. And you can comment to that in a minute, but I have a second question that's kind of more specific, and that is, so in us naming this area as NRSA and dedicating our CDBG funding to it, those percentages that you spoke of earlier still apply within this project. Does that make sense? That's a question.
Percentages.
The public service, the infrastructure, those.
Right, they're still a part of the Community Development Block Grant.
And so do they apply within NRSA?
Well, we set aside specific funds for NRSA
Okay.
during the budget process this year.
Okay.
They do not hit the administration cap, if that's,
Well, no, that so much. I just wanted to kind of go back to when we approved it, we didn't, we're still funding some of the other things we did.
sure, yes, ma'am, oh, yes.
That's what I'm trying to spit out. And then within what we approved for NRSA, do we have to put so much in the?
There were no funds.
Service? Okay.
No, the plan went in with, this is what we would like to do.
Okay.
There were no dollars tied to it. We
Okay.
didn't get additional dollars, and we did not say, we will put out X dollars for this project.
Because I think part of what I'm trying to speak to is the notion that we have diverted every single CDBG dollar
We have not.
into this, and I just want to make sure that we clarify that's not actually correct. And I thank you
Okay.
for letting me carry on so long, but I appreciate all the hard work.
One of the things I did want to mention, Carlene is a community, what's your title? School engagement officer.
My official title is Community Engagement Educator, and the easiest way to actually tell you what I do is I used to teach science to sixth graders, and now I teach how our school district works and what it does to the community.
Anyhow, she asked for volunteers for our walking event and for our picnic. And she was there at all of these events. And if children that went to high school came and helped us, she signed their receipt so they could get their laptop or their tablet the first day of school. And we had several kids participate in that. So that was awesome.
Commissioner Philbrook?
So it sounds to me like we're going to have this happen again, this activity. Is this going to be a yearly happening thing?
I don't know that the picnic is going to be a yearly thing.
But part of it, visiting.
We will be doing yearly events.
Okay, okay. So is visiting the communities in it too? Because you were talking about using your GPS unit, GIS unit, to record. And so you're planning on using that again and going from door to door again to talk with people?
I believe that we think that the app could be used for like the vacancy registry and for other UG activities other than the NRSA.
Okay, all right.
And if we do additional NRSA areas.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's tacked on at the end. Where I was going to go is that I think part of the idea of doing this neighborhood was to see what the best way is to deal with these tipping point neighborhoods so we can continue to make an impact in other neighborhoods. So maybe this picnic was not perfect, but the first one never is. And it was a good way for us to learn what works and what doesn't work, both with our app and with our volunteers, and with that picnic concept, so that we can do a better job in this neighborhood. And if we move to another neighborhood, we don't have to have that first stumbling block. We already know what is going to work well and what might not work as well in the neighborhood as we're trying to make an impact. Any other questions? This item is for information only. No action is required. So if there are no further questions, that concludes our meeting. Thank you for your presentation, and thank everyone for their attendance.